What was the real purpose of the war? The real purpose of any war, it's all about, they want us to believe false narratives so that we'll believe any line of bullshit that they throw at us. Morning, America. This is Dream Life Podcast, and I'm Steve Buck, your host. We're going to expand a little bit on Q here. We're going to do a short episode here. Q drop number 42. Q drop 42 touches on a 50,000 foot view of some of the different families and that involved in the New World Order. So this is Q drop 142, November 12th, 2017. And Q poses the question, how did Soros replace Family Y? Okay. Family Y is, I believe that's the Rothschild family. Okay. And, you know, just because of symbology and stuff, that's why I believe that Family Y, the Rothschilds, it says, who is Family Y? Trace the bloodlines of these three families. And so it says, what happened during World War II? Was Hitler a puppet? The answer to that question is yes. Hitler was a puppet. Who was his handler? Well, his handler were these three bloodline families, okay, that make up Family Y. And the mainstay of Family Y is the Rothschilds, but the bloodline, it's in the Rothschild family. It's not just the Rothschild bloodline, but it's different family bloodlines. Who was Hitler a puppet? Yes. Who was his handler? His handlers were the three bloodline families, okay, that amounted to the, you know, they're the banksters. What was the purpose? What was the real purpose of the war? Well, the real purpose of any war, it's all about money, because money means control. It says, what age was George Soros? George Soros, at the time of World War II, I believe he was like in his late teens or early 20s. He was very young at the time. What is the Soros family history? Well, the Soros supposedly are Jewish, but I don't think that they're Jewish. I think that they just claim to be Jewish. They don't have any DNA that's Jewish whatsoever. It's just they conveniently hijacked a Jewish heritage to prevent any attack, like we discussed before, the Anti-Defamation League in the United States. The Anti-Defamation League, it's just, that's a cover story for people who have hijacked a quote-unquote Jewish family history so that people can't attack them from a righteous position, because they use the, you know, anti-Semitism and the Anti-Defamation League. They sick them on them as pit bulls to protect their bad reputation or to clean up their bad reputation. What has occurred since the fall of Germany? Who is Angela Merkel? What is Angela Merkel's family history? Followed the bloodline. This is all about the banksters, and Angela Merkel is a descendant of Hitler. Who died on the Titanic? What year did the Titanic sink? Why is this relevant? What exactly happened to the Titanic? Well, the Titanic was brought down because of the fact that there were some U.S. elite businessmen who were against the establishment of the Federal Reserve Bank. I think one of them was definitely Astor. I'm going to look it up just because of the fact it's now it's bugging me that I can't remember all three of the very elite wealthy businessmen. So who? Jacob Astor, John Jacob Astor. He was the richest passenger on the Titanic. Isidor Straus, a wealthy New York merchant and co-owner of Macy's department store. I thought it was Oppenheimer, but it's Guggenheim. Benjamin Guggenheim, an industrial magnate who died traveling with his mistress, valet and chauffeur, and maid. So you had these three very wealthy men who died on the Titanic because these men were standing in the way of the Rothschild family bringing in the Federal Reserve Bank to the United States of America, which once they captured America's banking, you capture the world banking. And from there, what they did is that they put a Federal Reserve central bank in 207 more countries after they got the Federal Reserve Bank in the United States of America, because now America always sets the precedent. America is first in everything. So the Rothschilds, they were able to go around the world and say, oh, well, look, even the United States of America wants our bank, and they want us to print their money, control their economy. And if you control the economy, you control the world. That's what was happening here with World War II. It was for them getting a greater and greater stranglehold on every component of world finances and world banking. That's what happened to the Titanic. And it says, what class of people were guaranteed a lifeboat? Of course, the richest man in the United States of America, or pretty close to it. I mean, Astor and Guggenheim and third guy, Strauss. These three guys were in the top 10 richest people in the United States. And by extension, also the world, because the United States of America was the wealthiest country in the world. That's with the exception of the Rothschilds, because even back then, the Rothschilds were trillionaires back at the beginning of 1900 because of how successful they were at stealing so much money from humanity. How was it that being in that class of people, you weren't guaranteed a lifeboat? That's because they were murdered. They were murdered as soon as they hit that iceberg. There was a hit team there. They went in, they murdered these guys, and they just threw them overboard. Okay, because there was so much panic going on that they needed the false flag of a sinking ship to murder these three men. Why did select individuals not make it into the lifeboats? Because they were murdered and thrown overboard. Why is this relevant? How do we know who was on the lifeboats? How were names and bodies recorded back then? When were tickets purchased for her maiden voyage? And who was specifically invited? So what Q is doing is, Q is painting the picture on how these men were baited into going on this glorious maiden voyage for the greatest and most, newest and shiniest ship on Earth. Well, they were baited, they were invited, and Q says it was less than 10 that were specifically invited, because these 10 people they had to kill because in some way, shape, or form, they were preventing the Rothschilds from getting a foothold within the banking to create a banking cartel in the United States of America. So talking more about what is the Fed? Well, the Fed is the Federal Reserve Bank. And what does the Fed control? The Fed literally controls all the money on the entire planet. And they do that by virtue of the fact that the United States, the US dollar, going back 50 years ago, when it was no longer backed by gold, it was backed by the fact that Saudi Arabia and the OPEC countries agreed that they would only sell their oil in the reserve currency of the US dollar. And that, by default, made the United States currency de facto reserve currency for all banking on planet Earth. Who controls the Fed? The Rothschilds and the bloodline families control the Fed. Who approved the formation of the Fed? Congress, and I believe, was it that scumbag Woodrow Wilson? Woodrow Wilson, signed the Federal Reserve Act into law on December 23rd, 1913, establishing the Federal Reserve System in the United States. And so Woodrow Wilson, nothing but a scumbag scoundrel. He sold us down the river when he signed the Federal Reserve Act. And all the members of Congress who voted for it, they sold us down the river too, and I hope they burn in hell for it. So Q says, why did Hollywood glorify Titanic is a tragic love story? Who lived in the movie? What man? Why is this relevant? Well, the person who lived in that movie was Jacob Astor. And so the movie, quote unquote, tragic love story was basically a made up story about Jacob Astor. And it said, who lived in the movie? What man? Well, the lover of his wife in this tragic love story was played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Stephen, what name did he use in the movie? It was Rose and, Jack Dawson. That's it. Rose DeWitt Bukater and Jack Dawson were the two that were, they were supposedly in love. And it was the lover that, he was the one who lived in. Why is this relevant? because exactly the opposite is true of what they're trying to, push as the storyline. Why is it relevant? It's because they want to brainwash the people so that the people don't understand what they're doing, okay, when they make these movies and all this control of the narrative, okay? They want us to believe false narratives so that we'll believe any line of bullshit that they throw at us. Was it a psyop? Yes. The movie, meaning the movie was a psyop. The Titanic movie about a tragic love story, that was a psyop, getting us to believe a bunch of bullshit, the exact opposite of what was true. What happened to the Hindenburg? Okay, well, they say it caught on fire and blew up. Okay, what really happened to the Hindenburg? The Hindenburg, just like the Titanic didn't go down because of an accident. It went down because of a planned false flag tragedy to kill really, really rich people. The same thing happened with the Hindenburg. The Hindenburg was basically blown up because they were trying to kill people who were fighting against the international banksters taking over the world with their Federal Reserve banks, that the Rothschilds. Who died during the accident? I actually have to look that back up because I forgot. So right here, this reminds me right here in this article, there were 97 people on board, but only 35 died, okay? And it just so happens that these key passengers, Ernst Rudolf Anders, Birger Brink, Herman Donner, Irene Donner, Bertus Dolan, Edward Douglas, Fritz Erdmann, Otto Ernst, Moritz Feischbusch, Erich Nockner, John Panis, and his wife, and Otto Reichhold. These were people who were fighting against the central banks, okay? And so this was another false flag to warn people is that if you want to play with us, you're going to die. We will kill you because we are going to control the world. We're going to control the money, and there isn't anybody who's going to stop us. And that's why you had the sinking of the Titanic. That's why you had the blowing up of the Hindenburg. And Q also tells us that 7 out of every 10 plane crashes are hits on people that they're looking to kill. Why is this relevant? What are sheep? Well, the sheep are all the people of the world, okay, who have to live under the thumb of these crazy satanic bastards. Then this is the part I wanted to get to. It says the truth about the way that the world works, about what these satanic bastards have been doing with Epstein Island, the Playboy Mansion, the other 29 Epstein Islands in the Caribbean. And these islands, they're all over the world. If the general public knew what was really happening and how there's ritual satanic murders of children and the abuse and the rape. Q says right here, he says, the truth would put 99% of the people in the hospital because they are so depraved, they are so disgusting that a typical human mind cannot process how evil that these people are and how people could just daily, without any reservation whatsoever, just completely abuse multiple hundreds and millions of human beings. This is how bad it is. So he finishes up by saying Snow White, Iron Eagle, and Jason Bourne, basically saying that the world controllers basically have us living in a pretty sick, disgusting dream that very soon we're going to need to come out of, and we're going to need to wake up because we are going into the golden age, and God is going to fix these things. Q post number 142. I just want to cover that in today's episode. So everybody, again, we're going to be live every Saturday at 10 a.m. on YouTube and hopefully Rumble as soon as we get 50 followers. So please join us and share, help us promote what we're trying to do. And that's it for today. Thanks, folks. So, folks, if you like my channel and you like the golden nuggets that we're delivering, please hit like and also subscribe. And also you can comment anything that you want to say or questions that you have down in the comment section, and we'll reply to that. Thank you.